Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So this is the video where we take a look at the differential undervalued players in FPL right now that you could either fill out your wildcard teams with or get in on a free transfer that'll help you get up your mini leagues, because we can all say that Haaland and Mbumo and Mateta are great picks right now. But what about these players that no one is talking about? So if it does help you out, please do consider subscribing. I've got a small channel that's trying to grow, and the support has been amazing so far this season. I really do appreciate it. I make all the charts myself, and let's get into it. So first of all, it's important to discuss the teams to target. So this is Crystal Palace, Fulham, Brighton, Man City, Liverpool, Forest, and Newcastle. They all have best fixtures in the Premier League for the next 6 games. So not only are we going to look at differential players, but we're also going to narrow it down to players from these teams that potentially have great upside. So when we start with the goalkeepers, all of these goalkeepers are under 10% owned. So that's what we mean when we talk about a differential player, someone who is less than 10% owned in Fantasy League right now. When we narrow it down to the players from those teams, we can see we've got Henderson and Verbruggen, as well as Leno and Max Sells. For me, someone like a Dean Henderson, it's a bit of a bad pick right now because you might want three outfield Crystal Palace players. You might want Mateta, you might want Sarr, and then you might want a defender, whether that be a Munoz or a Gahey or a Richards. And I think having Henderson in, it does just block you off. With someone like a Leno or a Sells, I think they're probably better picks because right now you probably don't want three outfield Fulham or Nottingham Forest players. And someone like a Sells, it's almost like his data so far this season is irrelevant because Forest are on their third manager. So we don't know what Sean Dyche is going to do. We'd like to think, hopefully, he's going to make them a bit more solid defensively, and therefore Sells could be a good option. However, if you're just on a free transfer, I probably wouldn't use it to get in a differential goalkeeper because you can see that the worst goalkeepers and the best goalkeepers, the difference in points between them per week just isn't that much. The worst goalkeepers, they're probably only getting you 1 or 2 points. But the best goalkeepers, you're looking at 6, maybe 7 points on a great week if they keep a clean sheet and get some save points. So I would definitely use your free transfers elsewhere. But if you're on a wild card looking to find an edge, hopefully this chart could help you out. So let's take a look at the most efficient differential defenders. And this chart's really showing minutes per point versus defensive contribution per start. And we've talked about minutes per point before. What that means is how long does your player have to be on the pitch for before they get you a point in FPL. And the further left they are in the chart, the better. And with defensive contributions per start, we can see that really what you're looking for is how many or how likely are your defenders going to be to get you those 2 extra points in FPL. So really, the further left and the further high up this chart is, the better. So these are all the defenders currently who have played at least 4 games so far this season who are under 10% owned, and it looks a little busy. We can see that really you want to be getting players from this area here, and this isn't about filling out your entire defense from just these players. Obviously, you'd want your Gabriel or another Arsenal defender, and you want your popular players as well. This isn't to fill out your whole squad. These are like your fourth, maybe fifth defenders, and the same for the midfielders as well. So let's take a look at this section a little bit more zoomed in, and we can see that automatically we've got players like Lacroix and Richards in there from Crystal Palace. We've also got Anderson from Fulham. Now, if he's fit, he's a great option because not only has he got defensive contributions consistently so far this season, Fulham also have great fixtures. We can also see that even though they don't have good fixtures, we've got Mukiele and Alderete in this area as well. And as a fifth defender, I think even though Sunderland's fixtures are a little bit tougher at the moment, I just don't see a reason to not get those in if you're on a wild card or if you are looking to get a cheaper defender in. So me personally in my team right now, I've had a lot of expensive defenders. I've sold Vardiol to get in Mukiele, and it just helps free up funds. I think the same could be said for someone like a Chris Richards. So if you're looking for a Palace defender and you can't really afford Munoz, I think I probably would go for Richards ahead of a Lacroix. And that's mainly because I think Richards for defensive contributions is just great consistently. We look at his side of the defense and it has Munoz on it, who is so attacking that it really means that other teams attack down the left hand side of Crystal Palace, and that is Richards' side. So he's definitely better than someone like a Mark Gahey, for instance, in the near future. So what about the midfielders? And I've done the same sort of chart here where we're looking at minutes per point and then expected goal involvement. So again, these are all the midfielders in FPL who've played 4 games so far this season that are under 10% owned. And really, it looks too busy, doesn't it? There's a load of different players here. So let's reduce it just to the players from those 7 teams we talked about earlier. And here we can see that it looks a little bit clearer. We're looking for players really in this section. So these are players who not only being quite efficient with their time on the pitch in terms of FPL points, but they're also highly involved in expected goals. And top left, we can see that there's Ismail Assar. And for me, I don't really like the idea of 3 Crystal Palace players right now. I think Mateta is probably a great option. But then for the rest of them, Crystal Palace, their fixtures look good. But what the charts don't say is that they're actually playing a game midweek every week as well. And the teams they're playing in the next 4 games actually don't have any midweek fixtures. So those opposition teams, they're just focusing on Crystal Palace, whereas Palace are having to focus on a midweek team and then this team on the weekend consistently. So I wouldn't be too surprised if in 5, 6 weeks we're looking at Palace and saying, oh, maybe 3 was quite a lot. But you can't really argue with this data so far. If someone like Assar is doing really well and they've got good fixtures, that's surely a good thing. If you weren't going to go for Sa, I do also like Minter, Bruno Guimaraes, and Iwobi. I think Iwobi, even though he's a little bit lower down the chart, he is someone that scores in bunches and has good fixtures. And because he is so low owned, he is someone that you can just jump on for your fourth, maybe fifth midfielder, playing when the fixtures are good. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got attacking returns. I know Minter is a very popular pick right now as well. And I think if you're filling out your midfield, your fourth midfielder, any of these players in this chart are probably good picks. So feel free to pause the video at any point and take a little look for yourself in other players. I will also say that all of the players that I've circled here are looking quite good for price as well. They're kind of around that Reinders price, a little bit more expensive, but not a million miles away if you were looking to swap him out. So let's move on to the forwards here. And again, minutes per point versus expected goal involvements. I just think that's a really good chart for forwards. These are again players who are under 10% owned, and we've got Thiago and Welbeck up at the top. Now, Welbeck is really the only player that I'm looking at from these forwards, but as someone who's already owned Welbeck, I do think that how many goals are you expecting him to score? He's already scored 5 goals so far this season, and they've been in the last 3 games. How many goals would you expect Welbeck to score by the end of the season? Probably 12 maximum, which means he's got 7 more goals in him in the next 30 game weeks, 28 game weeks. So I would just put a bit of perspective on these strikers' performances. When we take a look at goal contributions versus expected goal involvements, we can see the line of best fit here really would show that if a player was on this line, they'd be hitting their expected goals. So if someone was on the line, say, for 4 expected goals and they're getting 4 expected goals, they're kind of matching their performance. Anyone who's below the line or to the right of it, they're overperforming their expected goal involvements. And anyone to the left, they're underperforming their expected goal involvements. So as the season goes on, players typically will get closer and closer to the line because the sample size gets bigger. Players just tend to get their expected goals across the season. So what you're looking for are players with good fixtures who are maybe going to overperform their expected goals in a short space of time in the next few game weeks. Well, these are the strikers that we talked about from teams right at the start of the video. And really that means that you're looking at a Chris Wood. Well, I wouldn't be getting Chris Wood in right now because we don't really know if he's going to start for Nottingham Forest, how their style of play is going to go. And the other strikers have actually been overperforming their expected goal involvements. I think if you were going for a striker, you could go for a Beto as someone who is really underperformed so far. So in theory, he should score goals in the near future. I personally wouldn't go for him though, but if you were purely data driven on, potential performances in the next few weeks, Beto could be an option. I do also like Thiago, even though Brentford have tough fixtures. I think he is probably the best third striker option right now. But then if you are looking at just dropping down to a cheap third forward, because ultimately we're all going to have Haaland and Mateta. They're the 2 best forwards in FPL right now, and that is quite expensive. So there's absolutely no problem in just dropping down to a third cheap forward, someone like a Gui or a Krupi Jr., and therefore just investing the money elsewhere, or even just having that money in the bank. If you had, 2.5 million in the bank, and for some reason you did want a Salah or a Saka or someone who is more expensive, you could absolutely then just put that money from the bank into making that one free transfer. Whereas if you had a third striker who's just going to be on your bench anyway, you'd need to sell them to then upgrade elsewhere, and that's two free transfers. So just have a think about where your third striker is going to be on your bench and how much you're actually going to use them. Because if it's not very much, why are you putting that extra couple of million into them when there could be cheaper options elsewhere? So that's the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've got any questions or any players that you're thinking of investing in, whether you're on a wildcard or a free transfer. Hopefully, it's helped you out. Go check out my other videos as well, a wildcard video, as well as my own game week preview where I talk about my own team. Please do consider subscribing as well. The support is awesome. And honestly, I really do appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.